practicing to be a poor communicator? What craziness is this? Who asks such stupid question? I do. I ask this question because many times while training people to be effective communicator, this is one of the biggest hitch. What happens is people practice poor communication so much so that it becomes a really permanent habit, and that's damaging to any relation, whether it is personal or professional. And if you really want to know whether or not you're practicing poor communication on a daily basis, watch this entire video because I'm going to talk about 5 most damaging habits that you are practicing on a daily basis, which makes you a permanent poor communicators. Let's go ahead and see which one is your problem. Number 1, sentence constructions which are damaging to your self-confidence. For example, once I was telling one of my students on the stage that make a big promise to your audience right now. Tell them that next 3 minutes is going to be life-changing for you. All that person was saying, I'll try this next 3 minutes to be worth it. I was like, okay, a little more bolder, okay? Bring a little bit of more boldness and courage into it. Make a big promise. Person said, next 3 minutes, I will try to speak something that may be helpful to you. I was like, what is wrong with you? Why are you not speaking what I'm asking you to speak? Make a bolder statement. Person said, no, wouldn't it be too much? Like, what if I fail? What if this 3 minutes of presentation is not going to be worth it? Well, when you practice and when you are actually thinking like this all the time, you are self-sabotaging yourself. Hence, your confidence will never be reflected through the words that you're uttering. And slowly and gradually, it's going to be such a habit which is truly damaging to your personal and professional life. If you want to have better relation, you ought to stop this habit. Make bolder statement when you badly need to. Stop self-sabotaging yourself. Hence, do not make sentences which are like, I'll try, I can I ask you something? Can you give me 2 minutes time? Get rid of all these sentences which are poorly constructed. Rather, choose the sentences which are assertive in nature. How to be assertive communicator? There is a video that previously I have already made, so you can watch that video for it. Number 2, waiting, not listening. You heard me right. I often notice whenever there's a group talking and interacting and there's a matter to be discussed, I would notice a lot of people in that meeting or in that group would be looking somewhere up, down, anywhere, thinking, waiting, not listening to the person who's speaking at that moment. All you do is you practice poor listening skills. And when you do that, the next thing that's going to happen is that you'll say sorry after saying something. Oh, wasn't that the question you said? Wasn't it the information that you shared? This happens because you were not listening, man. You were waiting to speak. You're waiting for your turn. So if you want to be a fantastic communicator, you have to stop practicing this habit of waiting, not listening. You have to actually listen to people. And you know how to listen to people? In order to listen to people, you have to be really attentive. And in order to do that, and that's the third mistake people do all the time, every single day, and they practice it rigorously. And that is, while listening to people, having a poker face, a deadpan look. If you want to listen to people carefully, you have to communicate with your body language. You have to communicate with your expressions. If possible, if it's two-way conversation, you have to communicate in words. You have to communicate in interjections. You may have to say at times while listening, my God, did that happen? Oh, what happened next? You're making me curious. Nice. How did you handle it? So these are the small sentences, or let's say just a bunch of words put together, is telling the person whom you're speaking to that, oh, I'm not just hearing you or waiting for my turn, but I'm also listening and focusing by putting those interjections in between, or giving and talking with my body language, with my expressions, with my hands, with my head, with my lips, with my eyes, and showing the interest basically. So a lot of people, majority of people who are poor communicators, they do not show, and they fail to show the real interest while listening to other people. You want to be a good communicator? Stop practicing this habit. Respond to people. Now, next mistake is something that I have been guilty of. over explaining myself. I used to think maybe people didn't understand, which is why I need to explain it a little bit more, maybe giving more examples, maybe telling in details, giving more specific details when it's not even needed. Stop over explaining yourself, because that becomes such a bad habit eventually, that even if you want to cut down to 2 sentences, 3 sentences, it becomes impossible. And this practice is often done by the people who have poor self confidence. So, it's like a wheel that you can turn around. You want to work on your confidence as well. All you have to do is to stop over explaining yourself. You want to say something, say it in a sentence. If you think it needs explanation, tell it in story. Give anecdotes, share the data, rather than over explaining it by saying the same thing in n number of ways. First saying in active, then saying it in passive. Stop over explaining yourself on a daily basis. It helps you improve your not just the confidence, but also it helps you become a fantastic communicator. Now, next practice is something that I'm not guilty of, but I find a lot of people around me, and that is not asking enough questions. Sometimes the good communication lies in asking questions only. All you have to do is to be interested in person and ask the valid question, and then the right question, then the interesting questions. That habit you build eventually only with one commitment, and that is, well, I have to ask questions. Not the silly one, what's your name, what do you do, etc., etc. Though these can be icebreaker, but after which you have to ask something that's pretty interesting. So when I meet people and I get to know that this person belongs to this department, this industry, and person interested in these subjects, I often get into asking the questions what always eluded me. I often get into asking the question what I always wanted the answer. I never had time to read myself and explore it. Hence, person becomes highly interested in talking about a subject that one is expert or one is highly interested in. At the same time, I enlighten myself. What we call it being a sponge. When you have habit of asking good questions, you become a sponge who can really grasp so much of knowledge without spending so much time in the books or watching videos or documentaries or and number of things that you do. Now, these were some of the habits people practice on a daily basis to become poor communicator. Now, if you don't want to be a poor communicator anymore, or if you found out, okay, these are some mistakes or any one of the mistakes that you are guilty of, in order to get rid of them, you know what you have to do. Drill is very simple. Do the opposite. If you speak too much to explain yourself, cut it down. Make it concise information. And if you think like, okay, you don't have a habit of asking questions because you feel like, oh, I'll fool myself by asking stupid questions, well, get into the habit of asking first stupid questions, so that eventually you are going to be asking good questions with a bit of retrospection, introspection, and maybe the feedback. You shouldn't fear feedback, right? So do the opposite. You become a good communicator. If nothing, you'll at least cut down on your habit of practicing to be a poor communicator. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel as yet, subscribe to this lovely channel, Pep Talk India. I, Khushi Singh, signing off. See you in the next video.